So I was having a conversation with my older brother the other day, and I realized I'll be lucky to see him maybe 10 more times before he dies. Now I want to be clear, he's not sick, he's not terminally ill. In fact, as far as I know, he's in decent health for a guy approaching 60. But the math is this: the average American man lives to be 77. Now my brother's not in amazing health, but let's go ahead and knock it up to 80. And on average, because he lives across the country, I see my brother every 2 years. Well, 20 years divided by 2? So yeah, if nothing changes and we follow the law of averages, I've got less than a dozen times that I'm going to spend with him. Now some of you guys may be thinking, well, that's incredibly morbid. Well, I would argue it's just the reality, and if confronted, can set our priorities straight. Because when you do those numbers, thinking about your mom, thinking about your dad, thinking about how much time you've got with your kids living at home, our limited time, philosophers have wrestled with this for thousands of years. From as recently as Heidegger, going back 2,000 years to Seneca. In fact, his book on the shortness of life dealt specifically with the issue that most people spent time on meaningless pursuits. So knowing this has been an issue since the beginning, we can embrace the 2,000-year-old solution, which is to accept your finitude. Basically, stop acting like you're going to live forever, which I know doesn't apply to you because you've never wasted a moment. But seriously, when you embrace the fact, I'm 22 years old, I've only got 3,000 weeks left. Seriously, do the numbers. If you're 40, about 2,000 weeks. Well, all of a sudden, the value of those weeks, the value of your time goes up. And that's where the magic happens, because you stop majoring in minor things. I mean, not all the time. You're still going to binge watch over on Netflix, probably spend too many hours over on Instagram, but more often than not, you're going to come back to your senses and say, you know what, that get together this weekend with all my buddies, it's only 5 hours away. If I start driving right now, I can be there at 10 p.m., surprise them, and still have a great day Saturday, and get up early Sunday morning to get back home to be with my family. You know, I'm going to do it because I don't know how many times I've got left with these guys. Now, the next tip to be super productive: measure and record everything. All right, so I don't actually know if that's possible outside of China, and I know some of you guys are hesitant about this kind of stuff. You want to stay off the grid and all, but I have found personally the pros outweigh the cons in tracking my fitness activity, what I eat, and even the time I spend doing things has been nothing short of eye-opening. So here's the deal. You can read all the studies, you can have all the information, but oftentimes we don't act on something until we see it for ourselves in the way our body reacts, in the way our body performs. Example, eating before going to bed. I know that you're not supposed to do it. 2 to 3 hours is what they say. But when I started measuring my sleep and measuring when I was eating food, guess what? I saw very clearly that if I eat 3 hours or less before when I'm going to bed, guess what? My sleep productivity just falls. I have less deep sleep. I wake up throughout the night, and the next day I just don't feel good. And when you see this pattern again and again, yeah, I can't deny that I'm an exception to this rule. I can see clearly if I want a good night's sleep, I need to not be eating late. And speaking of recording, gents, I want to introduce you to today's sponsor, Plod AI. To be specific, the last couple weeks I've been using the Plod Note Pen, and I absolutely love it. Now, the Note Pen was designed to be the world's most wearable AI voice recorder. It's basically a hands-free, always ready AI note-taking solution. And that's exactly how I'm using this. So on my Tuesdays, I pack them full of meetings. Another tip right there is to put all your meetings, if you control your schedule, into one day. For me, it's Tuesdays from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. It's a pretty long day. Well, with the Plod Note Pen, what I've been doing is recording pretty much my entire day. Then I have their AI summarize and give me the notes. So as you can see here, by default, it just puts the date and time that the notes are being taken. Then I go over to Generate. And as you can see with Generate, we've got the autopilot, we've got consulting, we've got the report format or discussion format. I click the Generate Now button, and within a couple minutes, I've got a broken out complete summary that lays out everything I covered and structures it in a way that's easily understandable. That being said, if I want a transcript, it has that available as well. Now, it's got quite a few options for wearing it, and one thing I like about this is you can actually just put it under your jacket and it's still going to pick up the sound. But if you want to wear this thing on a lanyard, you want to wear it on your wrist, or if you've got a really thick material you want to wear it on, try the clip function. And you've got to love the convenience because you're able to record on the go whenever you've got thoughts going through your head, you want to get some notes. Yeah, I absolutely love Plod. Not only that, it works with over 100 languages. The battery lasts all day. A really useful tool, especially if you need to get your thoughts in order. If you're writing down on sticky notes still, this is a great way to be able to get it all together. And yeah, save yourself time and stop losing those million-dollar ideas. Gents, use the link in the description of today's video. Go over and check out Plod's Note Pen. So I alluded to it a little bit earlier, but I want to go into more detail about how to be so productive it feels illegal, and that is to adjust your defaults. By that, I mean if you go into Google Calendar, what is the default time for a meeting? About 30 minutes, right? Or here's the deal. If you give somebody 30 minutes of your time, most likely they are going to take 30 minutes of your time. Well, what I've done across my company is I've made our default meeting 15 minutes. I've also made it a guideline that if you call a meeting, you need to send out an agenda of what you want to cover. So this does three things. One, it keeps the meeting focused. Two, nobody calls a meeting they don't need to because you got to prepare for it. You got to do a little bit of work. And number three, which everybody loves, is we keep meetings shorter. Because we only give them 15 minutes, people have to cover things quick. They have to get to the point, and guess what? People's time is less likely to be wasted. I also mentioned I like to do back-to-back meetings. Now, I don't do this more than usually for a few hours. That's a bit extreme. And believe it or not, on my busy days, I do schedule bathroom breaks. I schedule coffee breaks. I schedule my lunch break. And I'll tell you, gents, the reason this works is that we don't allow meetings to go longer than their scheduled time. And in the case a meeting ends early, which is always encouraged, we often internally in my company push other meetings up so that they can start sooner. And to make this even more extreme, there are those days that have things pop up that I've got to attend to personally. So the 3 hours I had scheduled, all those 12 meetings, all of a sudden we double stack them. What this means is that 2 meetings are scheduled for the same time. Again, we can do this internally. My team knows to expect it. And in this case, each person gets about 7 minutes instead of the 15. Now, I know some of you guys are listening to this and say, oh, well, that wouldn't work for me. When you've cut the time in your meeting that used to be 30 minutes down to 7, yeah, you focus in on the only thing that matters. Now, another adjustment you could make to a meeting is instead of having a regular meeting, turn it into a sprint. Now, the IT guys out there, you guys know what a sprint is, but in case you're not familiar with this term, it's when you have everybody that you need to complete a project online in a Zoom call or in person in a conference room, and you guys are working in conjunction together real time to accomplish the goal. In my experience, sprints are some of the most efficient and effective meetings that you can have, even if you've got someone in there that is only needed for, a couple minutes in the period of that hour, but having them ready, having them present. Guys, I have seen more happen in a 60-minute sprint than in a 6-month-long going back and forth over email, trying to solve an issue that seems to always get kicked down the road. Now, for sprints to work, you need to have the action takers, the decision makers, the people that will make things happen. Everyone needs to be present. Now, you could be off doing something else, but you got your Zoom call on, or you're there in present working, so that when the question comes up, when they need your expertise, they need your go-ahead, they need your help, you are there to provide it immediately. Now, this next one may seem small until you see how people that don't do it react. They're constantly reacting to fires, to explosions, to things that are going wrong. How to avoid this? How to go from being reactive to proactive? You do this by scheduling all of your maintenance tasks. Haircuts, medical appointments, maintenance of your vehicle, quarterly reviews, even your vacations and your time off. Yeah, your time off, your vacation, that's maintenance for your body, for your soul, and your relationships. Trust me on that one. But seriously, just how many times do you get too busy to take care of the basic things that eventually become an issue that you have to react to? The squealing on your tires, that check engine oil light, the noise your brakes are making. Seriously, gents, how many times you've been so busy with life that you forget to do the basic maintenance, and it ends up becoming a situation, one that you have to react to, one that ends up costing you a lot more time and a lot more money than if you had simply done the preventive maintenance. For me, a while back, it was skipping my dental appointments. I mean, I brushed my teeth. I hadn't had a cavity for years. They didn't hurt. I was too busy working, and when I did have time, I tried to call and schedule. They could only book me 2 or 3 months out, and I ended up not getting a checkup for over a year, which unbeknownst to me led to plaque buildup and eventually pain. And that's because I eventually developed first-stage gum disease, an expensive fix that could have been prevented. And even after I fixed it, I had to then go see my dentist every 3 months instead of every 6 months. The next tip to be productive, especially if you've got a partner, if you're married, if you've got a family, don't be afraid to get a large wall calendar covering the entire year and mark the dates that affect everyone. For us, those days are birthdays, their family vacations, they're important dates my kids have with their schools and their extracurricular activities. Because even though you've got your digital calendar, and let's say you schedule everything right there for work, well, it's probably the case that your partner, your wife, doesn't have access to that calendar, and she's planning an event on that weekend in which the company is sending you out to California. Or what about that week that your middle daughter has ice skating camp? You promised her on that Friday you're going to be at her performance. Well, you got to make sure to set that boundary. Take it from the physical calendar, put it in your work calendar, and be clear with the people you work with. That's a non-negotiable. Now, I know saying that, I'm coming from a privileged position. I own my company. I have a lot of freedom when it comes to the hours that I choose to work. That being said, most of us work for companies, work for human beings that understand you have a life. Now, obviously, you don't want to push this to an extreme or take advantage of people, but you do need to be clear on what your boundaries are and what's important to you. Because, gents, if you don't set your boundaries, other people aren't mind readers. They are going to set the boundaries based off of their needs, not yours. And that takes me to the next point on how to be so productive, guys. It feels illegal. You know who you are. You know what you stand for. You know what your core values are. Because when you know you want to be a good man, an honorable man, a committed man to his family, to himself, all of a sudden you can look at the measurement of where are you spending your time, and you can ask yourself, you can see it, you don't have to tell me, you just look at this in private. Are the actions you're taking, where you're spending your time, is it aligned with your values? And I'll be straight up, gents. I know for me, for a long time, this wasn't always the case. I was saying my family's the most important thing, but where was I spending the majority of my time? Working on my company, working on my projects, which is understandable, defensible. I was building a business, but I realized at times there were months in which I was going a little bit extreme. Watching 30 videos on YouTube so I could learn how to make better YouTube videos. Did that really make a difference, especially with me in the office till 9, 10 o'clock at night? The answer when I look back is probably not. And I think when you know your core values and you look at them and you look at where you're spending your time, it's going to allow you, give you the strength, give you the power to be much more ruthless, cutting off the things that don't matter. Now, if you're listening to this and think, man, this is way too much for me, you're probably right. That's why you want to recruit friends. You want to bring people into your circle that are going to help hold you accountable. So my close circle of business friends, we've got Aaron Marino, Ryan Masters, Eric Bandeholtz. There isn't a week that goes by that I'm not talking with those three guys about business, about life. And what's funny is most of the time it's friendly banter. We're just checking on each other. But we always do ask about, okay, what's going on with the business? Where are you at? How are you moving? And we do this without even thinking about it. But you talked about this 2 weeks ago. Where are you at? What progress have you made? We hold each other accountable, not even meaning to. It's just simply the nature of the way that we converse, what we find interesting. Now, all your friendships don't need to be and probably shouldn't be like that. But if you want to be more productive, find a way to surround yourself with more productive people. People that are at a higher level in many ways than you are. Talking about those guys takes me to my next point. You want to be more productive, be more physically fit. So both Ryan and Aaron, when you look at their builds, when you look at their bodies, I have to admit, it pushes me. I want a better build. When I'm around those guys, I feel like I am totally out of shape. And in my defense, both of these guys are way above average. One's a former bodybuilder and nutrition expert, and the other guy's a certified trainer and used to have a whole YouTube channel on getting in shape. But my point is this. Yes, leverage accountability, surround yourself with fit people, go to a gym, join a group fitness program, but be active. Because the time you spend moving, exercising, taking care of your body, you're going to get that time right back in your ability to stay focused and energized throughout the day. Now, in the last year, some big fitness wins for me have been starting to bike more. In fact, I used to walk back and forth between my office and house. It was just over half a mile in distance, which I still do. But now that I've got a bike, I'm finding that I am taking the long route. I've discovered that there's actually a 7-mile route to my office from my house that goes way out of the way, but is a lot more fun and gets me in a little bit more exercise before getting here to the office. I also try to break up my meetings by jumping in and rowing. And by the way, when I'm rowing, I got my hands full and I'm watching my edutainment videos and I have an idea. Guess what? I capture it with my Plod note pen. Oh yeah, bringing it right back in. Great sponsor. Go check them out. I will link to them down in the description. All right, Jen, so what did I miss? What would you have added to this video to make it better? What is your secret productivity hack? Let me know in the description below. And here's your next video to go check out. Guys, boom, I've got you covered right here.